Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. So glad you've joined us. We're appreciative of all of you, and we thank you, those of you who have found us on social media, and those of you that have visited our website from all over the world, 64 countries or so, and we are grateful. You can always find us at goodlifetelevision.org, and it's just been a great, amazing run of guests we've had from all walks of life, all ages, all careers. We've had a little bit of everything. So you can find all those at goodlifetelevision.org. I'm really excited about my guest today, county supervisor here in Santa Barbara, California, where we're sitting. He's the chair of the county supervisors, actually, in addition to being the supervisor for the 2nd District. Gregg Hart is with me. Gregg, welcome.
Dean, thank you so much for having me today. It's really an honor to be with you. And I'm such a fan of the Turner Foundation and all the fabulous work that you're doing for our community and everywhere. Really a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And I was just reading about you. It's interesting that you really are a Santa Barbara guy. You grew up here in local schools, City College, UCSB. You've kind of have hit all the Santa Barbara spots. Talk about kind of your love for this district and what it was like to grow up here and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm really lucky. I'm actually adopted by my parents, and they brought me into an incredibly loving home and took really good care of me and moved to Santa Barbara when I was really young. I moved to Lompoc when I was 2, and then the city of Santa Barbara when I was 5. And, I'll always be grateful to my parents for making those career choices to bring me here. And as you described, I grew up here in Santa Barbara. My father was the library director for the city and county of Santa Barbara, and my mom was an elementary school teacher. So books and learning and education were a really key part of my upbringing. And my father instilled a love of literature and books, and I continue that through my whole life. I'm a lifelong learner, and really Santa Barbara is the perfect place to live. We have the UCSB and Santa Barbara City College in Westmont. There's this tremendous confluence of intellect and creativity and art and science. And it's really an incredible community. I'm very fortunate to live here and to have had the opportunity to serve on the Santa Barbara City Council and now on the County Board of Supervisors. And with the exception of the time that I've lived in Isla Vista when I was going to UCSB, I've lived since I was 5 years old in the 2nd District in Santa Barbara County. So to have the opportunity to represent my neighbors on the board is really a unique privilege.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was going to say public service has really been kind of part. Your mom, I know, was an elementary school teacher, and you really have been, in kind of, I don't know, ingrained, but it's been a part of your family life. It seems like. What for those that don't know, and I know a little, but what are the typical challenges that a county supervisor? How do you, recently I know it's probably all COVID all the time, but in a normal year, and we'll talk about COVID in a second, but in a kind of, what is the portfolio, the purview of a county supervisor typically?
Well, it is really broad, and the county is a very large organization. We're a subset of the state government. The state of California passes laws and tries to implement programs, and counties are the vehicle for bringing that state legislation and those state programs directly to local residents. So we are responsible for the criminal justice system, for social services, for the agricultural policy, everything that you could imagine that local governments do, the county has its hand on. And in addition to that, of course, we have all of the local planning responsibilities. So subdivisions and permits and all of the planning effort that goes to keep Santa Barbara County a beautiful place to live, work, and recreate. And so it's a really big job. The county budget is over $1 billion. We have more than 4,000 employees with the largest employer in Santa Barbara County. And it's a job with massive responsibility. But as you described, I've made a career and a life out of public service. So I bring a lot of experience to this job. And as you said, it is COVID all the time right now. And that experience, that I had as a planning commissioner in the city of Santa Barbara, city council member, and Governor Davis appointed me to the California Coastal Commission. I used every bit of that experience in this past year as we've tried to do the best we can with the COVID-19 pandemic.
I bet. And that's my next question is about COVID. But I will say this about planning. People hear, permits and planning commission, maybe they kind of cringe a little. I'll tell you, I think there can be that thought process until you've been somewhere where they don't have planning commissions. Until you've been, and if you've been to places or, wherever it might be that doesn't have that, and you see the results, you understand why we have planning commissions and why that's thought through. So it's actually, I'm a fan. I mean,
that's a great observation. And Santa Barbara County is not an accident. The beauty and the majesty of this community is a product of generations of people who worked really hard through collaborative planning processes and just a vision to protect the natural beauty and have a built environment that's inspiring and is something special in itself. So we're very careful about what we approve and how we go through that process, and the result speaks for itself. There's sort of a synergy that comes from being a place where people want to travel and visit and ultimately live that attracts businesses and really creative entrepreneurs and successful people from all over the planet.
Yeah. It does seem like everybody wants to come here. I mean, to visit at least. Let's talk about COVID-19 for a moment. And it was about this time last year, I guess, when, it landed on our shores. And I'd just love to have your perspective on kind of, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. Kind of take it from there in terms of COVID-19.
Well, I know that this has touched everyone in really profound ways. And as 2020 will be a year that we will never forget as long as we live, to whatever age you are. My mother is going to be 90 years old in the middle of March. And last year, we had to cancel her birthday because it was right on the verge of the state shutdown. And I knew that was going to occur and didn't want to put her at risk. And I, at the time, never really imagined that her 90th birthday, a year away, would potentially be in jeopardy too, for the same reason. So this has been difficult. People have lost their livelihoods, their lives. Loved ones have been hurt financially and physically and emotionally. So we're all doing the best we can and trying to be resilient and weather this storm and get to the other side. I think that we're going to learn a lot of lessons, in hindsight. But I know, having sat where I have been as chair of the Board of Supervisors, that we've had to make very difficult decisions in real time without sufficient information. And I think, ultimately, folks are going to look back and say, might have done this better and that differently. But I can tell you, everyone has been committed all along to protecting lives and trying to hang on to as much of the economy as we can and trying to be flexible and adaptable and resilient. And it really has been an incredible inspiration to me to see how all the community organizations have pivoted, like the Turner Foundation and the Food Bank. And I could go on and list 50 different organizations that have kind of reinvented the way that they do business to accommodate this moment, keep people safe, and keep kids learning as best we can, and keep businesses alive. And those things are all intention, and it's not been easy. But I know our community takes this very seriously and has dug in hard, and we're doing the best we possibly can.
Yeah, well, and thank you for what you have done. And it's not going unnoticed, and it is unprecedented. I mean, I don't. None of you were on the County Board of Supervisors in 1917, so we haven't seen something like this before.
I can remember distinctly early on in the pandemic when the public health folks came to the Board of Supervisors and they were looking ahead and they said, this could get really serious in the summer, in the fall. There could be multiple surges of the virus. And I thought at the time, wow, that's just unimaginable. Isn't isn't the shutdown that we're going to do here in March and April going to really get this under control? And as it turns out, it's very difficult to get it and keep it under control. We were successful early on in the state of California with the shutdown order to keep things tamped down. But since the virus is invisible and asymptomatic people can spread it, it's been very hard to keep that sustained. And here we are, really in the middle of the worst surge of the entire pandemic. And I can't help but reflect and looking back on the charts that showed how the virus spread and the surges that they had back 100 years ago in 1917. And the pattern almost perfectly matches what we've experienced so far. So
Really?
these things are extraordinarily difficult to manage because they require almost unanimous consent and support for the interventions. And as a country, we struggled a little bit logically about wearing masks. It shouldn't be a political issue. It shouldn't be, a question mark. It should just be the reflexive response to do the right thing. And what most people are, not everybody. That's going to challenge all.
Yeah, I'm amazed when I think about it that we're trying to get an entire country to do all these things, trying to get an entire country of 340 million people to stay 6 feet apart from each other, trying to, it's just, this is a massive undertaking. It's mind boggling.
I was talking with somebody who had lived, through the Depression and World War II and things that, are enormously difficult. And I kind of thought to myself, well, those things seem more difficult than this. But she said, no, that this is much, much harder because in those situations, you had camaraderie, you had togetherness, you had a way, to emotionally connect with people. And that this situation is so much more difficult because what we're asking for people is to stay apart and to avoid that contact. And so she said, one of the hardest things is when she gets sad, she can't even get a hug from her friends and relatives. And that, I think, sums it up so well that that's what this challenge is it's extraordinary. And we're doing really well considering how difficult this situation is.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been, and I think one of the hard parts has been because we thought when we were in April and May that when we got here we would be moving out of the woods, and then it was it's kind of felt a little like it keeps kind of getting pushed, and nobody's fault. But it has been, and I think that's taken a toll. Can you talk at all, and if you can, it's okay, but if possible, about the vaccines, in terms of what people can expect, how this is working, who do they talk to? Just kind of, if you could give a little bit of insight on that, it'd be wonderful.
Yes, this is really an intense moment because I think there is hope finally now with the introduction of the vaccine and the availability of that. We can see light at the end of the tunnel. Before, as you described, we had these subsequent waves where it was really trying to get a handle on a surge and keep the hospital capacity intact so that we could protect patients that needed that intensive medical care. But now we have the hope that with the vaccine, as effective as the ones that have been developed, that if we can get enough people vaccinated, we can really end this and get to a point where we can go back to a normal life. But this transition moment is probably the hardest moment because the vaccines aren't available in the quantities that we need to vaccinate everybody as fast as they'd like. And so we're having this very difficult rationing process happen where we can't physically get enough vaccines in our county to give it to the people that need it the most. Obviously people who are older have the greatest risk from contracting the virus in terms of their health outcomes. So we want to make sure they can get the virus ahead of younger people. In addition to that, folks who are on the front lines in providing medical care, who are treating COVID-19 patients, have tremendous risks. So we need to inoculate them as well. And we just don't honestly have enough vaccines yet to accomplish both of those goals. There's about 30,000 frontline medical staff and first responders in Santa Barbara County. And there's another 30,000 people who are over the age of 75. We've only gotten about 40 or 50,000 vaccines in hand yet. So we can't even inoculate all of those people yet. And folks who are 65 to 75 are another 70,000 people. So we can't get to all the people that are the highest priority. And it's going to take some time for the manufacturers to produce enough vaccine to accomplish that. And this is where it's really difficult for people, because the system isn't set up to assure everybody a place in line, because we don't know how many vaccines are coming with each subsequent delivery. It's a black box at this point. I'm hopeful and confident that the new administration in Washington is going to get a handle on that and be able to provide greater transparency to the state and local governments about the delivery schedules. But right now, we don't know. We're just waiting to hear. And as soon as we get vaccines into our county, we're reaching out to schedule appointments and get those shots in arms as fast as we possibly can.
And when you say that you got 50,000 of the vaccine, is this Pfizer or Moderna?
It's a combination of both. So there's different delivery.
And is that one dose? I mean, I know with the Pfizer, I think you have to have 2 shots. Are you talking about total 50,000? Yes,
that's exactly right. So you have to subtract the second vaccine.
Right.
Inoculation from that total. So, but we're not doing it that way. We're doing, first in, first out. So if we get a vaccine, we either are giving it to somebody for the first time, or we're giving it to somebody as their second dose when it's needed. We're not holding back vaccine to give the second dose to people. We're counting on the fact that the new supplies will arrive in time to give the second shot to the person who needs that second shot. So we're trying to get as many people vaccinated as fast as possible.
Yeah. So how long does the shipment come in?
It's been coming about once a week, but it's been wildly different in quantity. The initial deliveries were large, and the subsequent deliveries have not been as large. We're hoping that that's a supply chain bottleneck issue, and that as the manufacturers are able to ramp up their production, that the deliveries will be larger. But they're working as fast as possible in the manufacturing end of the system, and the distribution to state and local governments is relatively quick too, but it's just physically limited by the fact that this is a new vaccine, and they're ramping up production and trying to get as much out as they possibly can, but it's not enough. We can't. There are 450,000 people in Santa Barbara County, and we want to inoculate every one of them. And as you can see, we haven't even received 10% of what we need yet.
Right. So let me just restate what I think I heard, just for clarity purposes. So you're saying, there's been 50,000 have come in. There's 30,000 frontline health workers, which I think everyone who would agree need to be the priority. There's 30,000 75 and over. There's another 70,000 of 65 to 75. Is that correct?
Exactly right. Yes.
So then where does it go from there? Does it just go down by age from there?
The governor has changed the original allocation formula. There was a very complex system that was initially established that was going to do essential workers as they were defined by the state of California, and then was going to work through the age categories. But now the system has been shifted to focus on age. And so what I think you're going to see is the 75 and up, and then moving down to the 65 and up. But there are also concerns that are valid and legitimate that don't have a good answer about what about folks who have that are more vulnerable at a younger age. Somebody that has a pre-existing medical condition, perhaps particularly with their lungs. How is that person going to be accommodated in this system? And at this point, we don't know the answers to those questions. The state of California is making those determinations in its consultation with the Centers for Disease Control at the federal level. And then we're reacting to that new direction from the state of California. And it's happening very quickly and changing very quickly. Last night, I learned through the news that the governor was proposing to change the distribution system to use the large health insurance operations, Kaiser Permanente and Blue Shield, as direct recipients of the vaccination, that they would then be responsible for just distributing in communities. So it is a very dynamic situation, and I can't even predict where we're going to end up.
Wow. So this is, has this just been your life for the last 10 months? I mean, you guys must be just having the volume of details and logistical planning must just be overwhelming.
It's astounding, and you're exactly right. It's been 24/7, no vacations, no breaks, just nonstop. And the folks in public health are working 16-hour days. There just aren't enough people, and there's not enough time to do everything that needs to be done. And people have questions all the time, and are legitimately and understandably really concerned. And this is their personal health, the concerns of their loved ones. They want answers to questions that we haven't often had the best answers for. We're doing it as we can, as fast as we can at every level, from testing to contact tracing to now the vaccination process. And there is no playbook. Nobody set up this is how you do this 100 years ago. And it's been
right.
Since. We're all doing it on the fly. And that's, again, I am more inspired by the ability of the community to flex and to adapt and to be resilient to this moment and fill in the gaps. Government can't do nearly enough to solve all these problems. So we rely on the partnerships we have with the nonprofit community, private businesses, churches, fraternal organizations. Everybody's pitching in and helping people who need help. And when this is all said and done, I think we're all going to be proud of the response that we did as a community and as a country to really challenging time.
Yeah, we should have a parade or something. I don't know. We have a lot of parades around here.
That would be nice.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, and you guys should be on a float, I think, with all the nurses and doctors. And good grief. Last question on COVID, and we only have a few minutes left. But should people, in terms of questions about the vaccine, should they just go to their doctor, or is there a number? If they say, "Where am I in line?" or "How do I get in line?" or "I should be in line," or whatever their thing might be.
I think folks should probably do all of the above, because it is changing so quickly. New opportunities to get vaccinated can appear because the structure is changing. So yes, number one, I would talk directly to your medical provider. They may very well be now part of the distribution system. In addition to that, publichealthsbc.org has a really good website that has lots of information. There are frequently asked questions. There's a wealth and a very deep source of information at the publichealthsbc.org. That's the Public Health Santa Barbara County. That's what those initials are for, .org. But that's a great resource. And if you don't have access to a computer, you can call just the 211 information line, and you'll get a live person who can answer your questions and direct you to the best resources that you're looking for.
That's wonderful. So publichealthsbc.org, or call 211 for information. This is a resilient community, isn't it? I mean,
it really is. And
I was floods and the fires.
For the COVID pandemic, at the breadth and depth of all the nonprofits that serve people. And this moment, people have just reinvented their mission to accomplish goals and objectives that are needed now and to get people help. The Food Bank of Santa Barbara County is a great example. They are doing 10 times what they did last year on the fly because the need is there. And, people are donating and helping financially and assisting them, in unique ways. There are partnerships that didn't exist. And that's just one example. I could go through every service that anybody could imagine needing, and there's a story to tell just like that.
Beautiful. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I think the parade's a good idea. I think we should stick with that.
I know we all want something normal, and
We
looking
need something.
forward to something like that is a really good idea because things are probably going to get a little harder or stay hard for a while before they get demonstrably better. And everybody there is no answer other than to be patient and to be kind to others, take care of yourself, take care of your physical health, make sure you get exercise, and take the stress down out of your life. Don't watch the news every minute. And if you are getting your news, be super careful about information coming from social media. That is not a good source of information. I really encourage people to go directly to the publichealthsbc.org website because that's part of the anxiety I think people are feeling is that they're getting these crazy messages from social media that aren't true, and they create anxiety and stress and worry. And we want people to know the truth and to be able to act on good information, and going straight to the source is the best way to do that.
Yeah. There's no way out but through, as they say.
That's right.
Supervisor Hart, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service, and we're rooting for you, and we're looking forward to getting to the other side.
Well, Dean, thank you so much. And again, thanks to the Turner Foundation for all the wonderful work you do in our community. You're one of the examples that I would cite about pivoting and providing services to your clients in new ways that really makes a difference in their lives. And I'm just so proud of all of us working together.
Appreciate it. Supervisor Gregg Hart, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us today. You can always find us at goodlifetelevision.org, where you can see all the interviews. So a lot of great people, a lot of great stories. And then we kind of break up the full interviews into what we call power clips. And so there's kind of some of the gold, some of the great moments from those interviews are in those power clips. So we'd love to have you join us there. We're on all the social media platforms. It's been really exciting to see so many of you join us from all around the world, and we're grateful. The purpose here is to honor, to encourage, to inspire, to educate, and to empower. And so that's why we're here. And we have a lot of great guests that help us do that. So thanks for joining us. My guest today is Curt Pickering. Welcome, Curt.
Thank you.
I'm really excited about this. I've been reading all about you over the last couple of days, and we were just talking off there, but I want to talk about kind of you've had a remarkable career. You've had a really interesting life, and I want to get to that in a second. But why don't we start with kind of where were you born, where were you brought up, kind of your family?
Yeah, I was born in Midland, Michigan, and lived my first 23 years in Michigan. Attended Spring Arbor University, a small college.
Oh, yeah.
And I really lacked self-confidence growing up, and I worked in a car factory for a year out of high school. I just wanted to make money, and I didn't feel confident about going to college. And 1 year of working in a car factory, man, that really had me fleeing to Spring Arbor University. It was the best decision I ever made to go to college, and ended up playing college basketball, and that just was a springboard to. I always knew as a young kid I wanted to be a coach. And
Really?
yes, and that's the one thing I did have confidence in. And so basketball became very much my identity.
Huh. Wow. Spring Arbor, the Westmont president was the president there before, wasn't he?
That's right.
Gail
Yeah.
Beebe.
Yeah, that's neat. So you made it from, you played at Spring Arbor, and then you ended up getting a degree in sports psychology and coaching at Texas Wesleyan, right?
Yes, in Fort Worth.
Yeah, how did you end up?
That's kind of a unique story too, because I'd been at Marion College for 2 years. I was teaching at a junior high school and coaching as the assistant with my beloved friend Rocky Kent, bless his soul. He passed on 2 years ago. And after 2 years, I knew I needed a master's degree, because now I had this desire to be a head college coach. And I went to see my high school buddy in Arlington, Texas, and I had this coaching directory book, and it said Texas Wesleyan University with no assistant coach listed on there. So I went over to the campus and I ran into some of the players, and this was at Christmas break, and they said, yeah, coach really needs an assistant. He's a great guy, but he could really use one. And I just had goosebumps, that, man, God, I could sure use your help here. And within 2 days, I got hired there. And this man, Coach Johnny Howerton, didn't even know me, but within 2 days, he gave me free education, free place to live, meals 7 days a week, a stipend, and sadly, cutting to the chase, 8 months later, he took his life. And he'd gone through a difficult divorce, and on the day of the first game of my second year coaching there, he took his life, and I became head coach there at age 26. Very wet behind the ears.
Yeah. Wow. And how,
I might add an all-black team too, and I love those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we went through so much, and 13 of the 15 did not have fathers, and I was more of a brother. I was 26. I mean,
Right.
some of these guys were 22, 23, and that was so difficult for them, because most of them was on their second and third chance, and Johnny Howerton gave them opportunity. And when I go back to Dallas, I see them, and we all just, in reverence, we talk about what Coach Howerton did for all of us.
wow. And how long were you there? How long did you?
I was there 2 years,
Okay.
and then I moved on to John Brown University in Arkansas. And from there,
You head coach.
as head coach, yes. And then I got the call to Europe, and next thing you know, I'm in Vienna, Austria, and what a fabulous experience. And yeah, I guess I had a little that wild adventurous streak in me, because I love to travel and live in different cultures: Kuwait, Dubai, Venezuela, China, and well, that doesn't leave much room for a family life. But finally, at age 40, I became a father, and that's the greatest gift I've ever had in life, is being a father
Yeah.
to my son.
And Sage is 23, lives in Austin, Texas.
That's
we were
right.
talking about him. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have been all over you've coached all over the world. I mean, it's remarkable and interesting. I mean, in terms of basketball, I mean, you've kind of done everything. I mean, I was reading, you've been a scout, NBA scout, you've been a head coach, you've been player personnel, you've owned a team, you've kind of been all over the board. And as I was thinking about your basketball life and your travels and all these different places you've been, it's kind of like basketball is one thing that's kind of a common denominator with all these places. I mean, in essence, still the same game, 10 feet, rim,
Right.
I mean, it's interesting how that kind of brings people together, in essence. Well, how would you characterize the differences in your experiences in different places, or kind of what were some of the highlights?
I would say first that, even when there's a language barrier, basketball brings cultures together.
Yeah.
And whenever I'd go to China, we were there 12 times. I'm 6'4", was blonde hair, but life has its way of changing things like
You're
that.
still blonde hair.
But it's amazing what a smile can do. It can break the ice,
Right.
and it can lead to somehow you find a translator, you know. So it's amazing what we can do. We don't have to be the ugly American and, you know, like just give a stern, non-expressional look. It's amazing what a smile can do. But that's really one of the biggest highlights is the friendships that I have, my players in Kuwait, you know, that I love them. I can easily say I love them, and you know, I'm a believer of God and Jesus, and you know, for my Muslim brothers that I love, I'm not going to let that be a division, you know, because they love that. To me, that's the most important example that we can be to each other is just to love. So it's not about religion, you know. And in Vienna, one of my players, he's now a multi-millionaire building hotels throughout Europe, and he flew me back there and my family back in 2000, and he paid for everything, and we had a big reunion because we'd won this championship in '86. We played against Vlade Divac and Drazen Petrovic. And we didn't beat them in the European Cup, but we won our league in Vienna, in Austria, and that was a big thing to win a championship there. So we had this we were there for 8 days, and so we celebrated for several days with all the players. I still have fans that they invited me during that week to their home for dinner. So those are things you never forget.
Yeah.
The wins are great. You know, I've got a few trophies, but it's relationships.
Right. Yeah, and a 6'4" blonde guy probably stands out in most places in the world, actually. So,
other than Holland. You know, I was just another guy over there.
Take me back to 1985. You end up in the NBA Summer League coaching. Talk about what that was like, and then I know you built a special relationship with one of our own here in Santa Barbara, California, Bill Burtka. Yep. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful part of my life because I was finishing up at John Brown University, and I got on the phone with Larry Krager, who owned the NBA Summer League, which is now in Las Vegas, and he was from Iowa, I'm from Michigan. We developed a friendship over the phone, and the next thing you know, in late June, I went out to Los Angeles and met Larry, and he and I hit it off, and his wife, Darlene, a wonderful lady. Next thing you know, I'm living in their home with them, but boy, I'll tell you what, we are working sun up to sundown because that's what it called for. The games were at Loyola Marymount University, and there was several weeks of tryouts for all these players flying in from 50 states, quite frankly. During that time, I met a gentleman named Bill Burtka with the Lakers who lives here in Santa Barbara, and that's the reason I've lived here 32 years, because he became my mentor, and he was instrumental in my first NBA job with New Jersey Nets, and he's been that source of wisdom for me.
Yeah, what a legend he is.
He's a legend.
In terms of Laker land, I mean, everybody's come and gone. How many head coaches in Bill Burtka's tenure? You know, how many players have come and gone and come again? And Bill Burtka's just right there. I mean, he was with Riley. I mean, he was on Riley's staff, right? And then he just has stayed. They never fired him. I mean, he never, you know.
I call him John Wayne Teflon Tough because he's 93 years old and he's still standing.
He's 93.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And still active. I mean, he's still moving.
Very active. And he still exercises, you know.
Wow.
He's he's like wine.
Right. Does he have like I think I saw a newspaper article or something. Does he have like a memorabilia collection in his home? You know,
I'll just say this. I took him to the Dreyer Museum when they had an amazing array of sports and movie memorabilia years ago. And I took Bill to it, and, you know, there was Shaq, 7'3" model and the big shoes and all. But there was everything there, Muhammad Ali, etc. But if you want to go to a shrinery that focuses on NBA basketball, going back to the 50s, starting with the Santa Maria Dukes, Bill Burke, I will not give his address out because, you know, there would be 600 cars lining up trying to get in there, you know.
Right.
I'll keep that a privacy, but, oh, it's amazing.
Wow.
And my favorite player, Pistol Pete Maravich, he has so much apparel and, you know, sports magazines, and, you know, Bill worked for the New Orleans Jazz, and he was the man that created the trade for Pete to go from Atlanta Hawks to New Orleans.
Really? Wow. I want to talk about the Breakers and the kind of the 10-year run, the experience you've had here as an owner of a basketball team here in Santa Barbara, California, where we are, and kind of what that was like. I know you guys won, I think, 4 out of 5 years or something like that. That you won the championship in the league, but you were the owner and the coach.
Yes.
And I think you had some great local talent come through. But talk a little about that experience and kind of what that was like.
That really begins with my son's birth, because I'd been coaching in Dubai, and we could have gone back there. I had offers, Japan and China, but when my son was born at Cottage Hospital, you know, they'd be 3 times they called out, "We got a blue baby." He would stop breathing, and it was terrifying.
Really?
You know, here my son's been born, but now he has these issues, and they had him in ICU. So 5 days later, he came home, fortunately, and he's been healthy ever since. But I did not want to go overseas because doctors wanted to monitor him. So I had worked the Michael Jordan camp at UCSB, met a lot of people from Montecito, and that had their kids in the camp, and they had said, "Well, we wish there was some type of program for our kids during the school year." And when I was without job there, come October of 1997, I called these parents, and we started with 17 kids at Montecito Union. And I have to say, once Rob Lowe and Kathy Ireland's kids signed up, it grew to 400 a week, because the parents wanted to see Rob and Kathy, because they would show up and watch their kids. You know, I would train the kids in fundamentals in a very positive way. So I did that full time for 10 years, and I loved it, the Montecito Basketball Academy. And I have so many good relationships and so many Christmas cards from them that I've never thrown away. But I had this itch to bring a minor league basketball team back, because I moved here 32 years ago thanks to Bill Burke. The Lakers had a pro minor league team called the Santa Barbara Islanders. It was a phenomenal team. And we had 10 guys that went back to the NBA. It was an amazing group. And,
wow.
And Shirley Otto was the owner. She's 93, good friends with Bill Burke, and lives here in Montecito. And I just had the itch to bring that back. And so I, you know, on the internet, I found this league, IBL, there was already 2 teams in California, 1 in Phoenix, 1 in Las Vegas. So budget-wise, I felt like, okay, there's some teams in this area that, you know, you create some home team rivalry, and then you travel some. And in 2006, we had a press conference at Fess Parker Hotel, and it was a 10-year run. It was wonderful. And then when the Pacers came calling, it was time for me to stop writing checks out, you know, for what it required owning a team. And it's like, oh wow, this is nice. Herb Simon's signing a check to me,
right,
you know?
Right.
And that felt real good.
Yeah, right. I was at, I think, the first Breakers game at City College, right? Yeah.
City College.
It was a great environment you guys created. But and there was a couple guys that I knew. Tito Mays. Do you remember Tito?
Yes, I sure do. Yeah.
Okay, he lived with us for 5 years.
Did he really?
Yeah,
Oh,
in
great
Goleta.
guy.
Yeah, athlete,
Oh, exceptional.
incredible
Yeah.
athlete.
Real close to Santiago.
Well,
again.
yeah, I was going to say,
They're very-
Santiago was my brother's roommate at Westmont.
Oh, yeah. Here's
but
the connection.
talk about a local talent, and I know Shante
Shante,
Leggins and Dos Pueblos
Right.
product.
Yep.
But you had some great local guys that got great opportunity to play at that level, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It was about helping, springboard players that were looking to get back in the NBA or good paying jobs overseas or for the love of the game, and
Yeah.
that were highly, worthy of based on their skills and character. Because I was real big on character. I
Yeah.
wanted good people.
Yeah.
Well, those two, you don't get any better in the
Great
character
guys.
category.
Yeah, and then there was some NBA, ex-NBA. I mean, I remember like Samaki Walker or some of
Right.
these guys that came
Fred
up.
Vincent, Toby
Yeah.
Bailey,
Right. Toby
Yeah.
Bailey,
Lamont Murray.
UCLA. Yeah.
Keith Kloss, he's a great story. 7'3". He calls himself peanut butter because he's very light skinned. But when in 2008 we took the team to China, he went with us, and I'll never forget this one practice. He says, "Curt, do you mind if I miss practice? I'll tell you about it later, what I'm doing." I said, "No problem." I just had a real respect for him, and he was a good man, and he'd been through hell and back in his life and in his NBA career. He'd played with the Clippers. After that practice, we were all going to the U.S. Embassy and to go visit and meet people there. And he got on the bus. He came to me. He says, "I want to show you something." He had this silver coin, and it showed that he'd had 1 year of sobriety of alcohol, and he was so proud of it. And he said, "Man, there was over 40 people, and they're from all over the globe, from different countries." He says, "I feel like I have all these new brothers, in common."
Wow.
And he's been staying strong ever since
Wow.
2008, and that's part of why we had the Breakers too.
Yeah.
Is
Right.
if we can, if there's anything we could experience or be a part of in their personal life, it goes beyond basketball.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you said it earlier. I mean, it's really about relationships.
It is.
I mean, it's just, and there's something about that, a team where there's this brotherhood and this, you build relationships because you're with each other every day, or I mean, you're grinding, you're winning, you're losing, you're having all these experiences together that really does bring people together. That's something great about sports, I think. I mean, it's a unique thing. So talk about we only have a few minutes left, but scouting. So you joined the Indiana Pacers as a scout.
Yes.
And what was that like? I mean, what's the life of an NBA scout?
Well, it's exciting. I'll tell you why it was exciting, and I'll compare it. When I was with New Jersey Nets in the 80s and 90s, they had me traveling everywhere, and I was single, So, man, I didn't think twice about getting on a plane and flying from either Santa Barbara or LA to Portland or wherever, and you go see all these players, and you're taking in all this data of individual players, and you do reports. And I turned it into Willis Reed, my boss. But
Willis Reed was your boss?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Good man. Really good man.
Wow.
And then you fast forward to my years with the Pacers. They had me focus on NBA rosters and the G League players for possible trades and free agent signings. And I only went to Staples Center. I did go to a couple Gaucho games, but I went to Staples Center, and then I would go to the Clipper and Laker minor league, the G League team games. And all I did was focus on individual players. And I really enjoyed that because, that's kind of been my first love. I love coaching, but I also love, really dissecting player talent and trying, watching their demeanor on the floor, sitting on the bench. There's so much intel that you can pick up on, that you're looking for that player that, you know, really plays hard, is consistent. He's got to have skill, but you're looking for those other characteristics.
Right.
And so I really enjoyed, you know, putting all those scouting reports together and giving my presentations when we the scouts would all fly up to Indianapolis and talk about the players that we really thought had a chance to make it.
That's really interesting to me. So you landed in Santa Barbara because of Bill Burkholder. How do you, just, we only have a couple minutes, but how do you like Santa Barbara and the community, how's it been for you to be here for 3 decades?
Well, growing up in Michigan, right now it's probably 27 degrees there. You know, the ground is frozen, and you know, I don't miss that at all.
Right.
You cannot beat this climate.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara, you know, it is paradise. Before I lived here, I lived in Dallas, Fort Worth, and when I lived there, I thought, this is where I want to, you know, live and die. And so
then summer came along.
you are spot on, because 2019, I went back to Dallas. Donnie Nelson, a close friend of mine that's the president of the Mavericks, and he asked me to help run his pro minor league baseball team, which, by the way, was 19 of the 25 players were all Chinese. They had their national team there grooming them for Olympics. And so I was senior consultant helping manage that. And he also sent me to India to meet with cricket owners. He wants to bring cricket. I mean, Donnie Nelson's just like his dad, Don. They're innovators. And so I spent 3 months in Dallas, Texas. I couldn't wait to get back home here. You know, that humidity was crazy.
Melting.
Yeah. So there's no better place than Santa Barbara. And I have, you know, wonderful friends, and it's just very peaceful here.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What a life, what a career. Congratulations on everything. It's great to be with you, and it's fascinating. So congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming on. We'll see you next time.